This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 221, entitled "Women Who Dump on Men Don't Get One." Description. This flyer says that young women on campus in the Western countries are now learning that women who dump on men don't get one. This lesson needs to be taught to the feminazi divorce court judges and lawyers who are financially crucifying one married father in 4. These young women are realizing that they will not be given babies by young men, even if these young women learn to be nice to them, until the gender laws are made menfair, so that young female masculists need to combine forces with the masculists to pressure the gender politicians, the divorce court judges and lawyers to menfair the gender and divorce laws. The flyer itself. Women Who Dump on Men Don't Get One, by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Men are not masochists. No man chooses to have a relationship with a misandrist, male-dumping, feminazi bitch. Such women are the most hated by men and are the first category of women to be rejected by men. Such women are punished by men by them not having one. Young women on campus are now learning this elementary lesson, so don't dare state publicly that they are feminists, because if they're stupid enough to do that, then that will be the kiss of death for them in terms of getting a man. No man will go near them. Men have the ultimate financial power over women in the sense that nearly all men are FIPs, that's financially independent persons, because we are socialized by our parents and teachers to be FIPs. As males, we also evolve to be FIPs, to manipulate the world, to understand the world. Women, on the other hand, evolved to manipulate men, to sexploit them, so that men would pay for women to have babies. Most women have a deeply held attitude that men exist on this earth to pay for women to have babies. Many so-called supermoms have learned the hard way that it's very difficult to be a careerist woman and a single mother. Most women want to have a man around who can soften the burden of earning the living so that she can have more time with kids that her DNA programs her to want. This dependency of women on men gives men the power to force women to do what men want, more specifically, what masculists want. Since we masculists want women to become FIPs, to grow up, to stop behaving like irresponsible children, and to take responsibility for their own lives and stop putting feminazi style all the blame for women's situation on men, then we masculists have the power to force women to be FIPs, because the opposite of a FIP, that is a fluffy, a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off the money of a man, can only be a fluffy if she can get her financial claws into some gullible, ignorant man-slave. But so many men are now influenced by MGTOW and masculist ideas that few men still exist who are prepared to be manslaved by a bloody fluffy. So fluffies are dying out. They are being left on the shelf, abandoned as immoral, parasitic, man-slaving vermin. We men, we masculists, have the power to wipe fluffies off the face of the earth. All we have to do is do nothing with them. That is, ignore them, not date them, not sex them, not talk to them, not do anything with them. If such women make the double mistake of being fluffies and dumping on men, then they will be the most ignored. For example, the stereotypical fat 4 feminazi. That is, the majority of today's feminazis who are rejected by men, who then cowardly, hypocritically place the blame for their manlessness on men, dumping on them, rather than growing up and putting most of the blame on themselves. Such women can't do much about their fourness, that is, their below average looks, their lower than average level of prettiness, or the lack of it, but they can do something about the other two characteristics, that is, controlling the number of calories they stuff into their fat faces and how nice they are to men. In the distant past, a woman who was unable to attract the attention of a man often died because she was unable to get scarce male-hunted meat from a man, and was not protected by a man from dangerous men from other tribes who might rape her or kill her. Women have a deep genetically based need to attract the attention of men. In the distant past, their very survival depended on it. In today's world, these fat-4 feminazis are the most rejected category of women by men. These women deeply resent this and feel profoundly hurt by men because they are unable to get a man. Often they can't even get pumped and dumped. Of course, they can always go to a pub and pick up some trash male and get penised that way, because some men will fuck anything. But then such women feel degraded, especially if they are university women with a reasonable brain. They will feel they deserve more, that is, a higher quality male that matches their expectations of men. But too often, these fat-4 feminazis take the wrong turn and express their bitterness and anger outward towards men, and hence tighten a vicious circle. They openly trash on men, becoming avid male-dumping feminazi bitches. Their mouths take on a permanent expression of bitterness and sourness that anyone looking at them can see and be put off by. These fat-4 feminazis then repel men all the more, who take one look at her, see the bitterness, see her hatred of men, and if they talk with her for a few sentences, quickly learn that this woman is a real misandrist. Not surprisingly, no man is prepared to go near her, so she is ignored by men all the more. She has locked herself into a tightly vicious circle and does not have the common sense to be able to extract herself from it. Such women are now a stereotype with a commonly accepted label of fat-4 feminazi, the cursed triple F, the most hated, most rejected category of female by men. Men avoid such women like the plague. Young women, especially at high school and college, are becoming conscious that such women are totally rejected by men. Both sexes have heard of the fat-4 feminazi stereotype, so that women especially do not want to fall into that trap, that vicious circle, so try to be nice to men, if ever they want to have one, who will help share the burden of earning the living so that she can have a baby without having to be a super mom, being a careerist and a single mother, which usually leads to burnout by the time they are 40. For men, this rejection by most women of the hated triple F category of women is a good thing. It means that the sharp edge of feminist wrath against men is being softened. Women are learning that, as the title of this flyer says, quote, "Women who dump on men don't get one." End quote. Unfortunately, this reasoning does not apply across the board, especially at the top end of the female hierarchy, such as in divorce courts, where too many divorce court judges and lawyers are embittered feminazi spinsters who use the profoundly misandrist divorce laws to financially massacre men as a form of revenge for being rejected by men. To counter the criminality of the divorce courts against men, young women now need to combine forces with masculists to help them menfair the gender laws. Otherwise, young men will continue to reject marriage, reject paternity, and spend their money on themselves. Because until the gender laws are menfair, especially in the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts, young men will continue to not give young women their sperm. So young women will not be able to fulfill their genetic destiny of being mothers, a desire that their DNA strongly compels them to fulfill. Young women are learning that they must be nice to men, because men have the financial power to reject fluffies and force them to fib up or rot on the shelf. But learning to be nice to men at an individual level is not enough, because the gender laws are still very much not nice to men. There are still extremely not nice to men gender laws, such as the divorce laws, the lack of a paternity rejection right, etc. So masculists need to educate young women that the latter need to make the gender laws nice to men as well, or millions of young women will continue to suffer due to the misandry, the man-dumping of the older generation of women. Young women need to pressure the older generation of women to be nice to men for the sake of young women's happiness, who have learned from first-hand experience that men have the financial power and can force fluffies to rot on the shelf. At the rate of growth of the number of men who are MGTOW or masculists in Western countries, it's likely that within a decade, about 90% of young men under 35 will be rejecting marriage and paternity unless the gender laws are made men-fair. Masculists need to educate young women at colleges and high schools that they need to help men-fair the gender laws if ever men are to be prepared to be fathers again and to help pay for kids. Men have this trump card over women that women cannot ignore. Men have the financial power to force fluffies to die out. If women want babies, then they will have no choice but to help men-fair the gender laws to soften men's rejection of marriage and paternity. Once large numbers of women have become more female masculist and push the feminazis, and particularly the gender politicians, to men-fair the gender laws, then young women may start getting the babies they want, so that whole populations do not get wiped out. The feminazi divorce court judges and lawyers also need to learn the lesson that, quote, women who dump on men don't get one. But for them, it may be too late, since they are often way over the hill, that is, too old to be sexually attractive to men, being in their 40s and older. Men don't look at older women sexually because such women are usually infertile and often overweight, not sexually attractive to men. Hence these divorce court female judges and lawyers who are feminazis will probably dyed-in-the-wool misandrists and hence intransigent. In that case, they will have to be combated by both masculists and female masculists who hate them, who put enormous moral pressure on them to men-fair the gender laws. Otherwise, these older women will justifiably be called genociders and eventually be murdered by the men they financially crucify in the divorce courts. That is, one married father in 4, a casualty rate far higher than in a major war. Masculists and the more politically oriented MGTOWs need to place more energy and emphasis on collaborating with female masculists to men-fair the gender laws. Younger women are learning faster than their older counterparts that women who dump on men don't get one. These younger women need to pressure their older sisters to learn the lesson that no man wants a relationship with a misandrist, man-dumping, feminazi bitch. The older generation of women really need to learn this lesson. Many of them have, but it's too late for them. 40% of women over 40 in the US live alone, many of whom have been rejected by men because so many men have been massacred in the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts and don't want a repeat performance with another fluffy parasite. Young masculist men on campus need to step up the pressure on young women who have not yet learned the lesson that women who dump on men don't get one. These young masculist campus men need to tell their female classmates that no man wants a relationship with a misandrist, man-dumping feminazi bitch. This lesson needs to be drilled home to young women by masculist young men so that it is then broadcast to the whole of society. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channels de GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW, Flyers, and Hugo de GARIS.